So does your army have what it takes to take these guys out? Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics. A couple of weeks ago we did a video about 5 top meta army lists and asked the question, do you think that your army list could handle them? It seems that people really quite enjoyed that video, so I thought we'd do another mini one, looking at another 3 strong factions in Warhammer 40k and asking you the question, do you think that your army could take them on? So let's take a look, talk through each of the lists and what they can do, and start with your first challenger, the Necrons. So here we have a 2000 point Necron army, led by none other than Zarek the Silent King himself. He of course is the central anvil of the army, a massive Lord of War choice in the Supreme Command detachment, and allowing 2 turns of a command protocol of your choice with the Triarch's Will Warlord trait. Mr. Zarek can really make himself a problem for enemy armies. It's fairly tough to take down point for point with that decent save and decent invul. He'll be beaming out quite a lot of anti-tank damage with those Triarchal Menhirs, and he goes quite a long way to countering a lot of melee threat armies because he makes them fight last. Between him and his Triarch advisors, he packs a mean melee threat in close combat, and a lot of elite units just can't really afford to fight second against him because he'll kill them before they get to strike. Zarek is leading a Novok battalion into battle. For an advancing battle line, we have 2 units of 10 warriors with Gauss Reapers in Ghost Arcs, and following close behind them is an Overlord and a Catacomb Command Barge armed with a Gauss Cannon, and souped up to be a melee monster with the Novok traits. He's got Eternal Madness and also carries the Blood Scythe, a decent buffing character, and you're really not going to want to get in his way. In Novok list, with their extra attack and extra AP, plus 2 turns of their Protocol of the Hungry Void, is really going to leave a mark on enemies. It's quite nice that even the warriors can do some decent work in melee, as well as their decent close range shooting with the Gauss Reapers. For striking on an unexpected front, there's a big unit of 20 warriors with a Chronomancer with the Veil of Darkness. He'll make them have a 5+ invul save, and then port them to another part of the board to strike down some enemy units that aren't expecting it. Again, with the Novok boosted charges, they could think about making a charge out of Deep Strike and stealing an objective away. Because they're so point sufficient and annoying, we have 2 units of 5 Scarab Swarms to screen out the enemy. Again, they can pack a punch with the melee buffs. For Zarek the Silent King to buff, we have a unit of 8 Triarch Praetorians which are going to hop around him, and pretty much there just to make use of Zarek's excellent rerolls. And then for snagging and claiming some objectives, we have a unit of 5 Flayed Ones and a unit of 2 Cryptothralls. The Flayed Ones will likely deep strike, and the Cryptothralls could think about either accompanying the Chronomancer or just hang around on an objective doing actions. As always with Necron forces, they pack a massive punch, and they're not that easy to remove from the board in return. You might have to make some hard decisions as to whether or not you try and gun down the Silent King, which is going to take a lot of the firepower from dealing with all the other threats that are hard to put down. Your second challenge for the day is an Adeptus Custodes list, and this one is a patrol detachment coming from the Shadow Keeper's Shield Company. Here we're making very good use of the Sagittarium Custodian's very cheap ranged firepower, the new cheaper cost for Virtus Praetors and their salvo launchers, and a few other bits and bobs. The host is led by a very fighty captain on a Dawn Eagle jetbike. He's got the Auric Aquilus for a 3+ invul save, Superior Creation for a Feel No Pain, and Unstoppable Destroyer to really amp him up in melee as his Captain Commander trait. As all Custodes have the Objective Secured special rule, even if he can manage to survive on an objective just for a turn, it could be enough to stop the enemy from claiming it. The Sagittarium Custodians are the Forge World troops choice, armed with all the bolt calibers. They've got an incredibly solid between the Forge World Compendium and the new points changes. They're 50 points each, have the Indomitable Custodes defensive stats, hit on a 2+ with a heavy bolter that can move and fire for no penalty, and if they get within 15-inch range they can also put out a Disintegration Beam as well, which is a flat 3 damage attack that they can fire at the same time as the heavy bolter. They're pretty excellent for holding down objectives and putting out a bit of anti-infantry fire. To double down with them, at the back of the board we also have 2 Caladius Grav tanks. These are armed with the Iliastus accelerator cannons and can provide a little bit of speed and manoeuvrability, jumping around, putting out decent firepower that's fairly strong against near enough anything. Then for the real punch of the list we have 2 big units of 5 Virtus Praetors, all armed with salvo launchers. Though I'll admit I could have happily swapped out one of these squads for some Ventari Forge World Custodians as well. In any case, these bikes are incredibly fast, will stack some very decent damage on near enough anything in the fight phase, and those salvo launchers provide some good range dedicated anti-tank weapons for the list, at strength 8, AP -4, d6 damage, and re-rolling failed wound rolls against vehicles. They'd be the unit that would need the most careful play in the list, trying to line up some decent charges while keeping them at least relatively safe to enemy return fire. And they could think about using their excellent Shadowkeeper's stratagem for 1 CP to subtract 1 from the strength of enemy weapons that target them should they need to. Perhaps one of the scariest things about the Virtus Praetors is their possibility of making a charge in the enemy's fight phase. Stooping Dive might cost 3 command points, but could easily be game changing or game winning if they do manage to kill one of your units that charges something nearby before they even get to strike. Finally, last, just to do some actions and maybe provide a little bit of anti-psycho, we have a unit of 6 prosecutors for the Sisters of Silence. They're primarily there just to do a bit of grunt work such as holding objectives or claiming table quarters if they need to, while the rest of the Golden Boys are free to get stuck in as they see fit. Plenty of very tough OBSEC units here and threats that you really need to deal with quite quickly. Finally, the last challenge of the day is an Adeptus Mechanicus list, and this one's a bit of a hybrid between Data Horde Breachers with those scary arc rifles and a Stygies patrol with some nasty Electro Priests in Dune Riders. I'm sure most people have seen me talk about Cataphrone Breachers with their arc weapons on the channel before. In the Data Horde patrol we have 2 units of 8 of them and 1 unit of 5, and those arc rifles are basically anti-everything weapons. They hit on 4s with 2 shots at 36-inch range, get exploding 5s and 6s, both of which give you additional hits, and they can get some rerolls from the Tech Priest Dominus, who also has learnings of the Genitor to give them a 5+ feel no pain. These guys are basically the ultimate objective holders. They have OBSEC, they're decently hard to shift at range, their arc rifles are almost made for killing Gravis armoured Space Marines, and put out some hefty damage against vehicles because they get d6 damage against them. They're not even that bad in melee with those arc claws either, as they also get all the exploding hits. Also in the detachment we have a few vehicles making use of that 6+ feel no pain save. We've got an Archaeopter Fusilier with the command uplink. That one's there to bomb some light infantry into the ground, potentially use Stasis Bomb to stop an enemy unit from moving anywhere near as fast, and it can also mess with enemy auras with that command uplink stratagem, which can turn off enemy character auras when they're near to it. Even if the enemy does gun it down, if it's close enough to enemy units, then you can auto-explode it and shower them in a bunch more mortal wounds. We then have a couple of Scorpius Disintegrators with energy cannons. They're fairly solid damage output between their stubbers, missiles and the cannons themselves, and are pretty handy just to have some ignores line of sight shooting if you do want to try and scrape a unit off an objective. Finally we come on to the Stygies 8 patrol, where we have a Tech Priest Manipulus alongside 2 transports full of Fulgurite Electro Priests, who are just particularly punishing in the Stygies army because they get to move before the game begins. For just 1 command point each, they can be all the way into the midfield and easily threaten a first turn charge on your battle lines, which if those Electro Priests manage to kill something, then they gain a 3+ invul save. The Tech Priest can make those charges a bit shorter, as well as using Prima Meticon, the Warlord trait, to allow them to reroll failed hits in melee. We've got a small unit of Vanguard for doing things just like throwing a bit more OBSEC on midfield objectives, screening or doing actions, and to round the list off we have 2 units of my favourite screening cavalry, Cerberus Raiders, who also get a free pre-game move and also get to run away when they get charged, allowing them to confound and annoy enemy melee units. Overall there's quite a few threats going on in this one. A really powerful backfield gun castle, 2 units of devastating hard-hitting melee troops, decent screening units, and an annoying Fusilier flapping around making itself a nuisance. So as before, let me know if you think that your list could handle these, and by all means I'm very happy to hear anything that you think could improve the lists. I'm definitely not saying that they're the absolute strongest things around, but just trying to be fairly representative of some of the stronger options that those factions can employ. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. We'll certainly be covering plenty of other strong 40k army lists on the channel in the future, so subscribe or check back if you'd like to see that. Finally, if you have been enjoying my videos quite a bit recently, I would just like to mention that the channel has a Patreon page, which you can find down in the video description. Making all of these videos does take a fair amount of time, so if you are enjoying regularly, any support is appreciated. I do try and give the patrons some decent rewards. Channel patrons get to see certain videos early, there's regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and you also get automatic entry into the monthly prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each and every month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.